Welcome to Speak Up and Stay Alive Radio with author, speaker, and your host, Pat Rouleau. Serving you a generous helping of everything you need to know to help you and your loved ones stay safe during any doctor or hospital visit. The program is not intended to replace medical advice from a licensed professional, but rather to encourage you to become a well-informed participant in your health and well-being. And now, your host, Pat Rouleau.
Hello, I'm Pat Rouleau. Welcome to the best time of the week, the time you and I get to spend together. And I value that time, and I thank you for joining me. Today, I have a guest who just blows me away with his ability to speak, to think, and to take action. And he's only 17 years old. He's more savvy than a room full of adults. And he has a few things to say about his research and his documentary about genetically modified foods, politics, and more. So hang on for that. You know, I just love it when we can learn from young people, and we need more of that. I think it's important to keep our minds open to new thoughts, new people, new opinions, and not get stuck in our "I've always done it this way" of thinking, and be open to two sides to a story, two answers to a question. I think our minds can handle that. So with that, I have a question about our annual doctor visits. And that can only mean one thing, that it's time for the healthcare hazard of the week. Well, this may not be a traditional hazard, but then again, it very well could be. You decide. I read an article in the Kaiser Health News by Jenny Gold titled, "Ritual, Not Science, Keeps the Annual Physical Alive." And it got me to thinking about how so many people visit their doctor once a year like clockwork, even if they feel great and have no symptoms. Now, I'm not suggesting or voting for either side today, but rather thought I'd give you a bit of food for thought. Here's what the article says. It's a warm afternoon in Miami, and 35-year-old Emmanuel Vega has come to Baptist Health Primary Care for a physical exam. Dr. Mark Caruso shakes his hand with a welcoming smile. Vega, a strapping man with a thick black beard, is feeling good. But he came to see the doctor today because his wife thought he should. She even made the appointment. It's free to him under his insurance policy with no copay, as most preventive care is under the Affordable Care Act. And here's me just interjecting, think of this as a little parentheses, and I say, it may be free to him, but it's not free. End of my little parentheses. Going on, the article continues. Vega is one of more than 44 million Americans who is taking part in a medical ritual, visiting the doctor for an annual physical exam. But there's little evidence that those visits actually do any good for healthy adults. Caruso listens to Vega's heart and lungs, checks his pulse in his ankles, and feels around his lymph nodes. He also asks Vega about his exercise and sleeping schedule and orders blood and urine tests. As long as everything checks out, Caruso asks Vega to return for another exam in a year. Vega says he definitely will. It was a positive experience for both the doctor and the patient, and they're not alone. 92% of Americans say it is important to get an annual head-to-toe physical exam, according to a Kaiser Family Foundation poll. And 62% of those polled said they went to the doctor every year for their exam. But the evidence is not on their side. I would argue that we should move forward with the elimination of the annual physical, says Dr. Ativ Mehrotra, a primary care physician and a professor of health policy at the Harvard Medical School. Mehrotra says patients should really only go to the doctor if something is wrong or if it's time to have an important preventive test. He realizes popular opinion is against the view. When I, as a doctor, say that I do not advocate for the annual physical, I feel like I'm attacking moms and apple pie, he says, because it's something that's just been a part of medicine for such a long time. But he says randomized trials going back to the 1980s just don't support it. Not only is it expensive, there's the risk that a doctor will run a test and find a problem that's actually not there. It's called a false positive and can lead to a cascade of follow-up tests that can be expensive and could even cause real harm. Dr. Michael Rothberg is another primary care physician and a health researcher at the Cleveland Clinic. He generally avoids giving physicals. I don't like to frighten people, and I don't like to give them diseases they don't have, Rothberg says. I mostly tell my family, if you're feeling well, stay away from doctors. If you get near them, they'll start to look for things and order tests because that's what doctors do. The flip side of that is that if you're not feeling well, don't keep it to yourself. Don't minimize it, and don't pretend it's not there, he adds. Rothberg says he still has patients who always schedule an annual exam. For those patients, he skips the physical aspects of the exam and focuses instead on talking to them about their dietary and exercise habits, possible risks, age-appropriate vaccinations, and any screening tests they may need. Well, back in Miami, Caruso is also well-versed in the research on annual physicals, but he still believes in them. I think having a look at somebody is worth its weight in gold, he says. It's an important part of developing a relationship with the patient, he says, and there have been countless times when he's found real problems during an exam, just like the one he gave to Vega. What if Mr. Vega had had a lump or a bump that wasn't right, Caruso asks? What if, when he had his shirt off, Mr. Vega said, "Oh yeah, I forgot to mention this spot on my chest," and it ended up being a melanoma we discovered earlier? Well, now it's me talking. I just wanted to put this little debate out there for you to think about. What are your thoughts on an annual doctor visit? Is it simply a ritual, or is it good science, a good practice? Only you have the answer that works best for you. But just in case you haven't given this much thought, ponder on it before you put on your special doctor underwear and head out for that annual ritual. Now, let's hear some legal news you can use. Okay, you are living dangerously if you don't have an up-to-date healthcare power of attorney, a living will, or a financial power of attorney. If you want to control what happens to you, your health, your end-of-life wishes, and your money, get this done this week. And who better to help you with this than my friends at Schraff & King? This is what they do, and they even have a certified elder law attorney on staff, one of only a handful within the state of Ohio. So don't play roulette with your future. Call Schraff & King today and let them know that you heard about them on Speak Up and Stay Alive. Their phone number is 440-585-1600. That's 440-585-1600. Come on, make me proud. Call them this week to review your current documents or to update or create new ones. 440-585-1600 or visit them at schraffking.com. Hi, I'm Pat Rouleau, and I have a question for you. Have you ever visited someone in the hospital and wanted to bring a small gift? Yikes! The flowers in the hospital gift shop cost a fortune, and then they die. Who wants a dead anything during a hospital stay? Well, I have a great idea. Bring a canister of disinfecting wipes and a pump container of hand sanitizer. Place it on the patient's tray table to encourage everyone to be mindful of hospital-acquired infections. And bring a copy of my book, Speak Up and Stay Alive, The Hospital Survival Guide. Just the cover alone is a real conversation starter. Stay safe during every healthcare or hospital encounter. Get a copy or two of the book and listen to our weekly radio shows. For more information and to get your hands on your own life-saving book, visit speakupandstayalive.com. That's speakupandstayalive.com. You are listening to Speak Up and Stay Alive Patient Safety Radio, and I am your hostess, Pat Rouleau, always bringing you a guest who has something a bit out of the ordinary to share with you. And today, I'm especially thrilled to introduce you to a 17-year-old political activist, a filmmaker, and a journalist from the Cleveland, Ohio area. Now, I met this young man through our new youth-driven internet radio station called Those Radio Kids, at thoseradiokids.com. He offered to share his weekly journalistic episodes with us, so now he is a regular on our station. He is Andrew Demeter. Let me tell you a bit about him. His documentary, We the People, Genetically Modified, won first prize in C-SPAN's 2014 student camp competition. And so to receive his award, he visited the Capitol in Washington, D.C., where he met and questioned former Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi on matters concerning the National Security Agency's metadata collection. He recorded the short confrontation with his phone, and the video after that went viral online. He also has a YouTube channel titled Teen Take that features his extreme attention to detail videos on subjects that range from covering Obama's speech at the City Club in Cleveland to calling out Monsanto to chemtrails, the TSA, and he interviews some important and very notable guests. He is my new hero, so we're going to get started. I'm going to welcome you to the show, Andrew.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be on.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to have you here. Now, many people your age, not all, but many, are concerned about yabbering on social media about frivolous topics, who wore what and who said what to whom. What triggered your interest to become involved with these heavy yet important issues?
Absolutely. Why would you bother to concern yourself with politics, Pat, when you could just look at pictures of Kim Kardashian all day or watch sports game? It's a no-brainer, it would seem, but as far as how I got into this being a teenager, it really all started because of the internet. One summer I was with one of my friends and we were watching YouTube videos, and long story short, we came across one by Jesse Ventura, and it was an old TV show that he filmed called Conspiracy Theory, and it was specifically an episode on the Denver airport and all these ominous signs and symbols over it. So that really got me questioning on this alternative path of, is everything that the government tells us true? And it really led me on this journey to where I've ended up now, to really question things in a different light. And just, my own personal drive has triggered me to do this.
Wow, and that was an interesting video. I saw that as well. And when I first heard about the Denver airport and where all the concourses are shaped like a swastika, is that correct?
I believe so.
Yeah, that's crazy stuff. If that didn't grab your attention, I don't know what. How do your peers react to you and what you're doing?
That's a really great question. Of course, like we prefaced earlier, a lot of people my age just simply aren't interested in these issues. And understandably so. They'd rather be preoccupied with these other vapid topics. But most people, at least from what I perceive, people my age, at least that I see on a daily basis in school, for example, a lot of them, whether or not they agree with what I'm saying, at least I know that many of them are actually watching my videos. It helps to push them out on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc. And again, whether or not they agree with my viewpoints, that's completely fine. I want people to, find these answers for themselves and not, blindly accept what I'm putting out there. But either way, at least they are hearing this information, and again, they can draw their own conclusions. But for example, since I created that documentary, we had this C-SPAN who was hosting the competition. They came to my school one day and presented the video in front of the sophomore class at the time. And again, at least it gets people thinking on this track, because prior to that, I guarantee you, no one in my school would know what Monsanto or GMOs are. But at least, again, they hear that word, and even if it's the punchline to a joke they make about me, for example, at least they have that in their brain is basically the bottom line.
Wow, and that takes a little bit of tough skin as well, because sometimes it feels hurtful when you are the punchline of a joke, I would imagine. But the bottom line is you are putting yourself out there to help others, and not to tell them what to think, but rather to think.
Absolutely. It's really not about me, and I know that probably sounds cliche, but it's not about me, if I get made fun of, for example, whether it's someone in school, which at least I don't see if that's happening, nor do I really care. Being offended is kind of stupid in my eyes, but it's not about me. It's about this larger idea, like you said, Pat, of spreading these messages, spreading this information, because at the end of the day, that's really what life is all about. It's this process of communication from one person to the next.
Absolutely. And boy, aren't we losing that today, huh?
Yes, absolutely.
I agree. That's what I'm hoping those radio kids will do and get people off of their cell phones and stop the texting and the fooling around with foolishness and maybe try to put something together similar as you are to affect some positive changes. I would venture to state this comment. Teens are traditionally politically apathetic, and I actually think we could take this a step further. Many people are politically apathetic, and I think in part because really who has time to understand all the mumbo jumbo that goes on, and so it's hard to even wrap your head around politics. What are your thoughts on this?
Like you said, teens are politically apathetic, but so are adults. So it seems like we've really distanced ourselves from politics because they're complicated, and that was my sort of motto for Politicast was going to be simplification of information without dilution of content. So I wanted to simplify things, of course, to the point where they could be easily understood and easily accessible, easily digestible information, but at the same time I didn't want to dilute the content to the point where it's really not news or information at all. So yes, that's absolutely true, and I think it's kind of ironic as well being in, the country we're in, where we're supposed to be such a important and critical part of the political process. It seems like right now we're being distanced from this process, and politicians don't seem to really care whether or not their constituents like what they're doing after they're voted into office. It seems like they can just really do whatever they want and not have any accountability. I think it was Paul Revere, and I don't think that was the right person, but someone said a quote once, and it was something to the effect of, promises cost nothing, and I think that's really telling of what the current political state of affairs is in America.
I absolutely agree with you 100%. I like what you said, the simplification of information without the dilution of the message. Is that what you said?
Content, yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah, exactly. And that's what you're aiming to do.
Right. People don't want to sit and listen to, a teenager, for example, just talking into a teleprompter and a camera for 10 minutes about his, personal ideas and thoughts. Instead, they just want a quick, entertaining video, which I try to do, like I said, with props, for example, and I try to integrate pop culture as well into my videos to sort of target that youth demographic, even if in a very small way. So ideally, it's engaging the youth and making them hopefully more informed.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea to keep them short and tight, kind of a Sesame Street type of a concept, and have them sizzle and fast and get the message across. Now, let's talk about your documentary on GMOs, genetically modified organisms. Why did you pick that as your topic?
So the prompt for the competition itself, the C-SPAN competition called Student Cam, the prompt was, what important issue should Congress address this year? And it was last year, so 2014. And at first I was thinking topics like drone strikes or the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, which allows the military to indefinitely detain any American citizen without habeas corpus or, probable cause. So those were the first things that popped into my head, but initially just trying to contact some people to interview, like politicians, for example, none of them, surprisingly, were willing to discuss these very controversial issues. So I figured, well, let's still pick a controversial issue, but make it one that maybe affects a lot more people, so it would also be easier to, book interviews with these people. So I eventually decided on GMOs, genetically modified organisms, because, put simply, GMOs affect everyone. Everyone requires food, and, food is just such an essential part of life that we see on the grocery shelves every day, yet we don't take the time to actually read the label or think anything of it. We sort of just blindly ingest these toxic chemicals on a daily basis. So that was, the first part, and then the second aspect of it, which is all this, conflict of interest and just complete, insanity with these corporate entities and then the public sector of government.
I don't think people really realize what's going on behind the scenes either, which you do bring out very clearly on that video. So what did you learn from all of that as you were doing your research and creating that? What did you learn that, say, surprised you?
Funnily, I don't think that's actually a word, but
I like it.
Ironically, out of the whole research process, I learned less about GMOs, or I didn't learn necessarily anything, too shockingly new about GMOs, but instead I learned a lot about, like you said, the behind-the-scenes aspect of this, which is that initially I tried booking people for interviews, like I said, politicians, farmers who have local farmers markets, grocers, etc., people all involved in some way in the food industry. And shockingly, at first, they'd immediately agreed to do an interview. They said, well, they implied, oh, C-SPAN's a credible organization, they're unbiased, so I know that my opinions won't be skewed in any, false way or falsely represent my opinions. So, they first agreed to do the interviews and said, oh, yeah, sure, this sounds great. And then last minute, for so many of them, like doctors as well, physicians, they sort of just backed out and said, I either am, here, let's take one example, for instance. There was one doctor I was trying to interview, and initially, like I said, he was like, oh, yeah, sure, I'd be glad to do this interview. And so we scheduled a date and time and everything, and then just the night before, he actually emailed me back and said, I'm actually unqualified to talk about this issue, which in my interpretation, in other words, meant that, my organization doesn't want me talking about this. I don't want to put my job on the line for saying anything controversial, and it was the same case with politicians. So, again, it's just so interesting to me that these issues affect everyone, yet it's seemingly so controversial and so taboo that nobody wants to talk about it.
Well, the least we know, the less fuss we can make about it, then there will be no change to the system. So it's exactly. I mean, we can talk about journalism there. That's kind of at the crux of a lot of the matter here. There's no journalism that really goes on anymore, or maybe it never did, but mainstream media is afraid to ask real questions. And I sit and shout at the TV when I attempt to become informed via the television, and media doesn't ask the right questions. They never really challenge the government. In fact, the press is the right arm of the government and of big business, and we're only fed what we're supposed to hear. So there's quite a bit of hypocrisy there.
For example, in the 60s, I believe it was, there was a little-known program. Now I think it's, public knowledge, and it's been, redacted or unredacted. It's been made public that in the 60s there was a government program called Operation Mockingbird, in which basically money for the Marshall Plan in Europe was siphoned by the American government to journalists to, in no uncertain terms, bribe them to basically regurgitate White House talking points.
Yeah.
So it should be no surprise. And like you said, with all these corporate media outlets who are owned by these large advertisers like pharmaceutical companies, for example, which, no surprise, they play all those commercials during dinner time when people are eating, because again, the food is so toxic. They're advertising basically at the right time, and all these media outlets are owned by these corporate entities, and so they're then beholden to them, and they're not going to insult or bite the hand that feeds them.
Absolutely. And as you're saying this, I'm thinking of something. I didn't plan on talking about this, but it kind of raises an issue when we were talking about technology. Well, now we've got the smart meters that are attached to our homes, and those are going to sync with these smart appliances. And let's take, for example, the smart TVs. Now we're sitting there watching TV while the TV is watching us. And let's say, we're having a husband and wife's having an argument, or the kids are fussing about what cereal to eat or what snack they want. And now the ads can, or eventually will, be able to be targeted towards what's going on in that individual living room.
Right, Pat. It seems like as these appliances, as this technology is becoming smarter and smarter, we as people are becoming dumber and dumber. We're becoming more reliant on it, and it's being used against us. And that also brings into, conversation, a recent interview I did with John McAfee, who was a pioneer of the antivirus software McAfee Antivirus, and he was telling me that now actually in toasters, some toasters have Wi-Fi signals, and through that they can actually surveil us. So it's no surprise, again, all this corporate and government intimacy that's going on, these conflicts of interest, and we're just being surveilled every day. And again, it's another issue that is so, evanescent, or rather present in our daily lives. Yet again, nobody wants to talk about it because we're not hearing it on media because, again, they're beholden to their corporate sponsors. So if we're not hearing it from the media, the fourth estate supposedly of the government, we're not going to be hearing about it because a lot of people just rely on the media and think that they're trustworthy entities, and they're not going to question things for themselves, which is why, for example, the Internet is so powerful, because it decentralizes all this information. It decentralizes the government control of these narratives, and that's why, again, while it is a double-edged sword, I find it so empowering personally.
Yeah, yeah. Well, was it General Petraeus that said, "We will spy on you through your dishwasher"?
I wouldn't be surprised.
Oh, yeah, that's true. So no smart appliances in this house. How's that? Um, let's get back for a second. Let's jump back to genetically modified food and organisms. What do you think we can do as individuals? I hate to always talk about the problems and not offer some sort of a solution. What can we do as individuals to put an end to this food war?
When you're at the grocery store, don't just pick up the brand name product. Instead, look at the label, see if it's organic. If it's USDA organic even, it can still have up to a 5% margin of inorganic ingredients, which is shocking to me. But look for non-GMO products that are, not genetically modified. So, take the power into your own hands. That's one of the main problems. Monsanto, for example, this large agricultural biotech business that basically funds GMOs and is responsible for them, they are actually funding now initiatives to not only make it so they don't have to label genetically modified products, but instead they're going a step further and actually trying to invest all this money into it and lobby to make it illegal to label these products.
Oh.
So that's one way. Look at labels when you shop. And then another way that sort of, not everyone can do this, obviously, but recently I went to downtown Cleveland, Ohio City, and spoke and interviewed with Bobby George. He's the owner of Town Hall, which is a 100% non-GMO restaurant in Cleveland. So we're seeing really now the tides shift, Pat. We're seeing that people are no longer, maybe a majority of people still are unaware of these issues. The market, at the end of the day, like with everything, the free market dictates the success of things. So if at the end of the day, really, all you can do is educate people, because if genetically modified organisms truly are unsafe, then the market will decide that. And because of that, because we vote with our dollars, we will ultimately shift the tides to a more healthy alternative.
Absolutely, and we talk about that on the program all the time. I mean, you have to hit them where it hurts, and that's the pocketbook. So if we refuse to buy those types of foods and they're not selling, well, then maybe someone will hear us, yeah?
Absolutely, because of course, at least in my opinion, we really can't rely on these flip-flopping politicians anymore. Again, we need to take that power into our own hands, and like you said, hit them where it hurts, because these politicians are unaccountable, but at the end of the day, money talks, so we need to, take that alternative route.
That's right, right. I mean, so these types of foods are a health issue. I think they've been proven to be so, or even logically you think about it, that, you're eating insecticides, it's probably not a healthy thing. And since this is a show on healthcare safety, what do you see as the most serious and impending health issues?
Well, I'd say, given the topic of this discussion, I'd say GMOs, because Monsanto, for example, well, no surprise, they say GMOs are safe, which is kind of the equivalent of asking, your son or daughter who just had their hand in the cookie jar and has chocolate all over their face, did you steal from the cookie jar? Did you eat a cookie? And they say, oh, well, no, of course I didn't do that. I mean, it's a complete conflict of interest. So to ask that question and get an answer from Monsanto is completely hypocritical. So GMOs are a big issue for me because, like I said, Monsanto is funding all these studies, and like you said as well, Pat, logically, is it smart to ingest an insecticide or a pesticide? It doesn't make much sense to me. And recently on French television, I believe, there was a Monsanto representative being interviewed, and the interviewer said to him, oh, in all this literature you write, you say Roundup is safe, glyphosate is safe, you can even go as far to consume it. So I actually have some in the back room. Would you like to try some? And then the guy being interviewed, the Monsanto representative, he freaks out and immediately leaves the interview. So if that's not telling, I really don't know what is.
Mm-hmm. Just last evening, I saw a commercial for Monsanto, and I hadn't seen this before, where I think it was showing a family eating at a big table and all this luscious-looking food, and obviously corn on the cob. And just seeing that commercial made me think, all right, what are they trying to whitewash here? I mean, you'd never seen a commercial for Monsanto before.
And it's all under the guise, too, Pat, of feeding the world, saving the world. Mm-hmm. What other, noble cause would you have other than that? It sounds great superficially, and personally, for me, maybe biotechnology, although I don't think we should mess with Mother Nature, maybe by itself it's okay, but, you have to separate the science of it, from these corrupt business practices. For example, the Obama administration in 2013 signed something called the Farmers Assurance Provision, otherwise known as the Monsanto Protection Act, and it literally gives Monsanto judicial immunity. Pat, as individuals, you can't, have judicial immunity. I can't have judicial immunity. We can't go rob a bank together and, expect no repercussions. But for Monsanto, even though, of course, as they say, their products are completely safe and completely healthy, there's no concerns whatsoever, they, have this judicial immunity, so they can't be prosecuted if anything they produce is hazardous or toxic, which I find, absolutely incredible.
Exactly. And then you can tie that to the vaccine industry. Well, they've got that same type of protection that they can't be sued for anything that they manufacture or inject in another person, or even the telecom industry, where the cell towers, they can put them wherever they want. People could get sick and you can't fuss about that. So anytime there's a law protecting the company against your health, I think we need to think twice about that.
Absolutely. It should be a red flag to everyone.
Yep.
Again, individuals can't have this type of immunity, this type of protection. So why on earth should these multi-billion-dollar companies have them in place? And also, going back to the conflict of interest that I alluded to earlier, Michael Taylor, for example, as I see in the documentary, former vice president for public policy at Monsanto, is also the current food safety czar at the FDA.
Yes.
So again, it just is, it's sad, but it's equally hilarious, the fact that this is happening and nobody seems to be batting an eye when the implications are so grave.
That whole revolving door that goes on between big business and politics, and people just allow that to happen and don't think twice. Well, you think there's a conflict of interest?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, now, is there anything that you'd like to talk about that you feel is important that we didn't at least touch on today?
I just think politics are so important for people to, take an interest in, because there's a quote that goes, if you don't take an interest in politics, they'll take an interest in you. And I totally understand they seem boring at the surface level, but try to, you don't have to read the newspaper every day or read all these articles online about foreign policy and stuff that seemingly doesn't affect us, even though it really does. But I'd say just, find some sort of topic, and basically anything at this point is related to the state in some way, because the state, has this overbearing autonomy or grasp, rather, over us. So I just say find a topic you're interested, pursue that, look into its, implications insofar as government, and then from that you will become a more informed person. Obviously, no one holds the ultimate key to knowledge, but it's really just all about informing yourself, and then ultimately educating others to sort of further that brush fire.
That's so true. And, once you're made aware of something, it's almost your responsibility to share it and inform others.
Right. That's just, the general concept of why people share things online, for example. If something's a good idea, going back to the free market, it will catch on, and, it'll ultimately affect other people. And that's why we share our knowledge with other people, because, we find it so important to our own life. And then we want people to, ideally accept that if it's true, and, make it pertinent and relevant to their lives as well.
Right. Well, listen, I know there's so much more, and I just love talking with you. This is just fun for me. So we could do this all day, but I know you've...
Happy to come on again.
Yeah, we'll have to do this. I know you've got lots more to do. So where can we find out more about you? Where can folks go to learn more about Andrew and Teen Take?
YouTube.com/Teen Take. TEENTAKE is the best place to go. You can also find me on Facebook. My personal page is just Andrew Demeter, DEMETER. And I have a Facebook fan page for Teen Take as well. Same thing, Facebook.com/Teen Take. I also have Twitter, Demeter, /Demeter Andrew. And those are basically all the places you can find me. I have been recently uploading new video reports every Saturday at noon. So that's where you can find me.
I'm really going to encourage everyone to take a peek at everything you do, because they're done extremely well. And here's what I say. We need more Andrews in this world, questioning, thinking, researching, and speaking up. And so I congratulate you on being you, and for setting a huge, important example, not only for today's youth, but for all of us. And I am proud to know you. And I'm so glad you were with us today.
Thanks, Pat, again. It's been a real pleasure. I had a great conversation.
And folks, remember, you can also find Andrew on our own internet radio site, thoseradiokids.com. Henry the Hand Foundation is a grassroots nonprofit organization to share Henry's hand awareness message with children and adults across the globe. Henry and his founder, Dr. Will Sawyer, encourage parents and health professionals to adopt a school in their community to share Henry's package program to teach health education. Share this message with a local school. Spread the word, not the germs. For more information, visit henrythehand.com. Hi, I'm Pat Rouleau, and I have a question for you. Where's the best place to be when you're sick? Oh no, you didn't just say a hospital, did you? Here's something you should know. Hospital-acquired infections are one of the leading causes of death, more than car accidents and breast cancer combined. And these infections are preventable. Still, 1 in 25 patients who goes into the hospital without an infection will get one there. So what can you do to avoid this? Get a copy of my book, Speak Up and Stay Alive, The Hospital Survival Guide, and listen to my radio shows. To find out more and to get a copy of the book that just might save your life or the life of a loved one, go to speakupandstayalive.com. That's speakupandstayalive.com. So glad you found us. This is Speak Up and Stay Alive, Patient Safety Radio. I am your hostess, Pat Rouleau, author of the life-saving book, Speak Up and Stay Alive, The Patient Advocate Hospital Survival Guide, and it's found at the website speakupandstayalive.com. Or if you do not have internet access, you can always call me, 440-725-5462, 440-725-5462. Well, now it's time for the seemingly silly portion of the program. It's game time. And today, the guys selected a favorite.
Shocking news from around the world.
Here's how it goes. I will read a healthcare-related statement, and you must decide if it is true or false, or as we call it, a shock. Wow! Or a crock. Oh. And we have our 2 seasoned contestants. Remind everyone who you are and from whence you came.
I'm Eric. I'm a regionally famous radio producer from Northeast Ohio.
Yay.
I'm glad he's regionally famous.
Are you, Bob?
I'm Bob. And I'm just a local boy from East Tennessee, a former financial planner and a developer. But I'm here.
You are here. I'm so glad that we're all back in the same studio. Okay, we ready?
Go for it.
Okay, here is a Speak Up and Stay Alive shocking news number 1. 10 million wisdom teeth are extracted in the United States every year. At least 2/3 of these extractions are unnecessary. Is that a shock or is it a crock?
Ooh, I try not to think about the dentist. That just kind of freaks me out.
So weird. Why we love you.
You know, I'm not sure what to say. I'll just say shock just by default.
Default. Okay, what do you think, Bobby?
I think it's definitely a shock. I think that dentists do things they don't need to do.
All right, you guys are both right. Sadly, it is true. It is a shock. Wow. According to the article, the prophylactic extraction of third molars, a public health hazard, at least 2/3 of these extractions' associated costs and injuries are unnecessary, constituting a silent epidemic of dentist-induced injury that afflicts tens of thousands of people with lifelong discomfort and disability. Yeah? So think long and hard about what you're doing before allowing a doctor or a dentist to put you under and perform a highly invasive procedure. Understand the risk versus the reward. And understand that every time you allow a medical procedure to put you under the knife, you may never wake up.
That's true.
You need to do your own homework and rely on yourself, not your doctor, not your dentist, to research the full risks involved. The more you learn to say no, the longer you will likely stay alive.
That's so true.
See, Eric?
Yep, now I'm going to continue repressing any thoughts I might have about the dentist.
Yay. And don't worry about those impacted wisdom teeth. Otherwise, you wouldn't be as wise as you are. Bob's shaking his head. Okay, the Speak Up. Speak Up and Stay Alive. Shocking news number 2. The fluoride chemicals added to many public water systems in North America directly contribute to both mental and behavioral disorders in children, such as ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and autism. Is that a shock or is it a crock?
I'm going to say it's a shock, and there's something else you need to know about the fluoride solutions. We're just using Chinese fluoride as a waste for them. We're using their waste to put in our water.
Did you just peek at my notes?
No, but I'm just saying that.
Oh, okay. Well,
I read that someplace.
What do you think, Eric?
I think since that is what's on your notes, I'll say a shock.
I knew you were going to say that. That is true. It is a shock. Wow. According to a new study published in The Lancet by researchers from the Harvard School of Public Health, the fluoride, Bob, is from China. And basically, we are China's toxic dumping ground for heavy metals. You're right.
And that's the reason it's affecting our kids.
Yep. Fluoride is the only chemical added to treat people who consume the water rather than just treating the water itself. So fluoridating water supplies can thus fairly be described as a form of mass medication, which is why most European countries have rejected the practice.
I don't think they want to get rid of us since we're such a huge market for their products.
We're in such debt to them.
No, they already own Nevada, Eric.
Oh my gosh, we've gone from fluoride to...
Okay, go for it.
We're going somewhere else here, people.
Go to another question.
Let's do it. Speak Up and Stay Alive. Shocking news number 3. Eating coconut contributes to poor health. Is that a shock or is it a crock?
My first impulse is to say shock, just because coconut tastes kind of sweet, and anything that's sweet has to be bad for you, right?
That's what I thought.
I'm going to say it's a crock. I think coconut's good for you.
All right. You're right, Bobby. It is a crock, but you're right, Eric. I thought the same thing. Oh. It is a crock, at least according to the Coconut Research Center.
See, I knew there was a center for coconuts.
And yes, there is a Coconut Research Center. They say that eating coconut has several advantages. It improves functioning of the brain. Just one serving helps in keeping age-related diseases such as Alzheimer's at bay. Coconuts can aid in weight loss due to its dietary fat called medium-chain triglycerides, which speed up the metabolism.
I better go buy a bunch of that tonight.
Bobby, it can improve heart health and reduce cholesterol and LDL cholesterol levels. And just 1 cup of coconut meat has shown to contain 7 grams of fiber.
I'm going to buy coconut tonight.
Now, we're not talking about the bagged, shredded, and highly sugared coconut.
We're getting that raw coconut.
And we're not talking about the coconut found in Mounds bars either.
Well, now, I thought that was a good one to get.
So that's exactly what I was thinking of.
Yeah, I saw Eric's eyes. He was thinking,
You know what would be good? A good chocolate coconut cake.
macaroons.
Oh, chocolate macaroons.
No, we're talking about real coconuts. And don't worry about overeating, because have you ever tried to crack open a coconut?
It's hard.
Have you cracked open a coconut, Eric?
No, I haven't.
You should try it.
I'm not sure I want to. Harder to break into than Fort Knox.
Yes, they are. I did one recently with a screwdriver and a hammer. It was
Yes, you did.
Interesting exercise.
She broke the hammer.
Oh, you're going to love this one. The Speak Up and Stay Alive shocking news number 4. Checking earwax is a good indicator of whether or not a person produces underarm odor. Is that a shock or is it a crock?
I'm going to say that's a bum fuzzler. I have no clue. I'm going to say shock just for the heck of it.
I'm going to say shock just because, I don't know, I suppose if you have earwax, that means you're alive, and if you're alive, that means you probably have underarm odor. Just some weird logical reasoning there.
Okay, you guys are right. It is true. It's a shock. Wow. These findings were actually published in the Journal of Investigative Dermatology. I don't know who would be investigating this or why, but the research shows that more than 75% of people with a particular version of a gene actually don't produce underarm odor, but they use deodorant anyway. That's one thing. And the authors also highlight that people who carry this rare genetic variant also are more likely to have dry rather than sticky earwax.
Oh, boy.
Did we like that question?
No, go to the next one.
All right, the Speak Up and Stay Alive shocking news number 5. College sports memorabilia and university sport jerseys, seat cushions, and keychains may be contaminated with toxic heavy metals that promote neurological damage. Is that a shock or is it a crock? Interesting question. What do you think, Eric?
I'm just going to guess shock just because I don't know. I don't know where these pieces of sports memorabilia are coming from, and I don't know if I want to find out.
You're going to find out.
Well, I would say it's a shock because if it's memorabilia and it's been used by athletes, and athletes do sweat a lot.
We're back to the sweat.
Back to the sweat. So I'm saying it's a shock.
It is. This is weird, and it is a shock. Wow. And this wasn't old memorabilia. This was new, stuff that you get, okay? College sports jerseys, keychains, seat cushions, and other memorabilia have been found to contain shockingly high levels of toxic heavy metals like lead, mercury, cadmium, and arsenic. The toxic products were sold by stores like Target, Walgreens, and Walmart, and they represented the University of Michigan, the University of Minnesota, Michigan State University, and some other universities. Not sure why, just those. But for example, a University of Michigan deluxe keyring was found to contain over 1,200 parts per million of mercury, which is a really potent neurotoxin. A Michigan State University seat cushion was found to contain over 200 parts per million of cadmium and 170 parts per million of lead. Now, cadmium causes kidney damage and lead damages cognitive function. The University of Michigan jersey contained 130 parts per million lead in its ink print.
Wow. Doesn't make sense.
Any thoughts?
Well, I noticed you did not mention Ohio State, so I know a bunch of people listening in Ohio right now are feeling a very smug sense of superiority.
Or a sigh of relief.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's just one more way the public health is being compromised without our knowing it. So take those jerseys off, University of Michigan people.
Thank you.
All right, guys. And now to the Naked Mole Rat Minute. Yeah?
I'm excited.
Are you excited, Bob?
Go for it.
I got irritated this week. I just read an anti-naked mole rat article on the website.
Anti,
I said. CancerResearchUK.org. The title of the article was Headlines About Mole Rat-Derived Cancer Cure Are Premature. They say, mole rats are newsworthy. They look weird, they live in colonies like ants, and they don't seem to get cancer. But we think some of today's headlines about research on mole rats have gone too far and give a false impression of a non-existent breakthrough towards a cancer cure. And then a big bold letters, it says, overblown headlines. We love to see interesting research being discussed in the media, and lots of the lab work on blind mole rats and naked mole rats is genuinely intriguing. But we're concerned such overblown headlines could give patients false sense of hope of a wonder treatment that's just around the corner. Or equally damaging, such recurrent headlines could have the opposite effect of undermining the public's confidence in cancer research by creating the impression of breakthroughs that then don't quickly materialize into cures. Such stories create an impression that research isn't working. Now, how do we respond to those naked mole rat haters?
I don't think they're entirely wrong. I think they're right in that you shouldn't expect a cure from them right away, that you need to be patient. You shouldn't expect that tomorrow you'll wake up and there's going to be a naked mole rat wonder drug cures cancer, world-changing type of thing in the newspapers.
But I want to believe that about the naked mole rat.
Well, I'm just saying, we have to wait. If there is a cure being derived from the naked mole rat, we have to be patient.
All right, let's be patient.
Yeah.
Now, this Israeli study has only confirmed the unique abilities of the naked mole rat to resist cancer. There are no current implications for human cancer treatment. Nonetheless, there remains optimism that understanding the anti-cancer mechanism of mole rats may one day help inform further cancer treatments for humans. Should we just go with that?
Let's go with it.
Yeah.
All right, let's give credit to the naked mole rat. Let's say naked mole rat. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Naked
mole rat. All right.
Jerry's going to love you.
Well, this was a bizarre group of questions today, guys. We learned about unwise wisdom tooth pulling, toxic Chinese fluoride, the benefits of eating coconut, earwax, underarms, and deodorant, and toxic college memorabilia. Yeah?
Yep. Got all of them in there.
We did. Well, now I'm sure you know that the next question is coming. So, on what other patient safety radio show will you find this random roundup of ridiculous yet redeeming reports?
What other patient safety radio show is there?
There's not one.
There isn't.
That's good.
Well, Bob, I thank you so much for being here today.
You're quite welcome.
And Eric, thank you.
You're welcome.
Glad to have you here. All right, folks, don't move even an inch. There's so much more coming up on America's favorite patient safety radio show, Speak Up and Stay Alive Radio. That's a wrap, guys.
That's a wrap.
Naked Morat.
All right. You're listening to Speak Up and Stay Alive Patient Safety Radio, and I am your hostess, Pat Rulo, always happy for the time we spend together. And if you'd like more time together and are part of a group of any kind, Rotary, Kiwanis, a senior group, church, club, association, or even a hospital, invite me to speak. It's always a fun time, and I guarantee a fast-moving hour. Some people expect that a presentation about healthcare and hospital safety would be a real snoozer, but surprise, it's not. And if you can't tell, I'm a bottom-line person. I don't like to fool around with wasted words, and I don't appreciate it when others waste my time. So I don't do that to my audience. You will come away with so many little tips and tricks to keep you safe during any healthcare or hospital encounter. And that's where you can also get a signed copy of the book, Speak Up and Stay Alive, the Patient Advocate Hospital Survival Guide. And who knows, Dr. Danger just might show up. Call me to talk about how we can wow your crowd at the next event. 440-725-5462. That's 440-725-5462. Well, it looks like we're at the end of our time together today, so I send you off to enjoy the upcoming springtime days. But remember to come back next week. Same time, same place, but never the same information. Oh, and be sure to visit our internet radio station for more invigorating programs that cover topics from relationships to narcissism to entrepreneurship to women's topics. We have 46 different programs just for you, and that's at speakuptalkradio.com. That's speakuptalkradio.com. Until next week, I hope you have a healthy and a happy week, free from genetically modified foods. Be sure to read the labels. I am Pat Rulo, and I am your guide to safe and successful healthcare and hospital encounters.
Listen to Pat Rulo and Speak Up and Stay Alive Radio. Stay safe from little-known healthcare and hospital hazards. To learn more, go to speakupandstayalive.com. That's speakupandstayalive.com.